Welcome to the Resume Writing Workshop pre-recorded edition. Here are some of the things to expect from our resume workshop today. We will be going over what is a resume, our recommended formats, the typical content you will see on a resume, how to tailor your resume, which is really important, and we will get into detail about that. We also provided a list of checklists and how to include references. We also will be talking a little bit about why LinkedIn is important and some of the next steps that you can take. So, what will you learn today from our workshop? As you can see, you will be learning the ability to communicate what it is of a resume and what's important as part of your career development. We want to help you to identify format, content, ideas to implement on your own resume, and to understand why and how to use a resume to articulate your experiences, strengths, and skills. So what is a resume? Resume is a document that gets to showcase your experiences so far. So all of you should be only putting in anything starting from college. I would say for first and second year students, you can probably include things from high school. But after you are in your third year, you should really take out anything high school. It creates a great impression for the employer to see what are some of the skills that you have that's specific and relevant to the position you're applying to. And you need to be updated in a regular basis, and they need to be tailored to the position that you're applying for. We are going to go over a couple of formats for resume. Chronological format is the most commonly used version. It basically details your education, your experiences from the most recent to the oldest. So you will always put in what's your current position listed to your earliest position. It's easy for employers to see, and it's very effective in highlighting what's most relevant. And we will go over the content in detail in the following slides. There's another format called the functional format. This is mostly used for career changers or our graduate students, because a lot of times you may have, let's say, the same jobs for many years, for example, as a teacher for several years, and then you may have several positions. And you probably don't want to list all the same tasks that you have done. This format allows you to highlight your skills and ability, not necessarily your per experience. As you can see, these are the most common sections on a resume. As you can see, your name is on top and your contact information. Objective is next, but it's optional, and it has been used in less frequency for employers. I would say if you don't have the space, you don't need to include objective. The next section will be education, your experiences, followed by skills, relevant coursework, and activities. We will go over each section in detail. We're going to go over your contact information in the heading. Why is this important? You really need to be sure that employers can remember who they read. I highly recommend putting it in this format. Bold your name and make sure that they are the largest font size. I recommend students to use 16 as the font size. Put your email, phone number, address, and LinkedIn if you have one. However, I've seen a lot of students remove their address or just put the city and the state for the address. Make sure if you put your phone number, your voicemail is set up professionally. And also make sure your email is a professional email or use your UCR email. As I mentioned earlier, objective is optional and it has to be very specific. Here are some of the examples. To obtain a summer marketing internship position at Decker's Outdoor Cooperation. So essentially, you will put the position you apply to at a specific company or organization. Please do not write a very long sentence because you want it to be easy for employer to read. However, you don't need to include it, especially if you're applying for multiple positions or if you are taking this resume to a career fair or upload it on Handshake or LinkedIn. Let's go over the education section. Education section usually is very important on a resume. When you review a job description, you will see a lot of times the first line of the requirement is education and major. Therefore, I highly recommend students to highlight your major and your degree, and not the school, so that it's easier for employers to see. How you list your education should be from the most recent to the oldest one. A few quick tips. You only want to list schools that you have received a degree. For example, I have students who attended community college and did not get a degree, such as an associate degree. I would recommend not putting it there. For students who had admitted to a master's program, you don't need to put it on there before you start attending. And you want to make sure that you put all the dates for the resume on the right side, just to make things balance. You can include a minor if you have one. You can include a study abroad experience if you have that experience as well. Relevant coursework can be listed only relevant to the position. Do not list more than 5 coursework. That's how I usually tell students, because it loses relevancy if you put a bunch of them there. Let's talk about experiences. What does that mean, experiences? The experience section will probably be the most important section of your resume because it communicates with employers. What are some of the skills that you are bringing to this position? It can be paid or unpaid. It can be any volunteering experiences, leadership roles, research, internships, and major projects. When I say major, as you can see, it's in cap on the slide. It has to be something that's probably about 30-40% of your grades. It cannot be something that's like a weekly quiz. It can also be your independent projects. For many of my STEM students, they do a lot of projects on their own, like coding, writing algorithm, developing their own apps. Those can be added as well. If you think things that you have done that will be directly or indirectly relate to the position, I will add it on there. And you can always meet with one of us to discuss how you're describing these and whether to include this experience or not. So what you're seeing on the screen is called the career readiness competencies. You will probably hear the term career readiness being thrown around a lot. These 8 competencies were created by a professional association called NACE. Stands for National Association of Colleges and Employers. That consists of many employers, including all the Fortune 500 companies and career centers. So what they do is they survey employers and ask them what are the most important skills and competencies that will help a student to successfully transition to workplace. I'd like you to look at these, and you should be able to see these badges around a lot of our workshops. Because when you think about how to develop your skills, you want to think about how you can communicate some of these factors through your skills. When you are writing your skills or experiences, I always tell students, use active voice. For example, instead of saying help somebody, say assist. The reason is that you want to make sure you communicate with employers that you are actively engaging. That's why we use the term action verbs that demonstrate the action that you have taken. And this list will give you some ideas about how you can describe your experiences. You can find our samples, the action verb worksheet, as well as our resume guide, where we have created a PDF, fillable PDF, that you can put in information, just kind of see what template look like. Go to our homepage, careers.ucr.edu, click the student tab, and then you should be able to see says job search strategies and choose resume. You should be able to see all the samples there. We also included all the samples on Handshake's resource section as well. So how do you talk about your experience? And this is really the most challenging part for a lot of students because you know what you're doing, right? So how do you talk to people about it? So imagine when people look at your resume, they have no clue what you've done. So it is your job to tell them what you have done. So you have to give them context. That's why we always tell students, don't just write job titles, but write the actual tasks or job descriptions. So instead of writing, worked as a cashier, write operated cash register and balance $1,500 in receipts. Talk about your accomplishment, but not just duties. I've seen a lot of students said responsible for XYZ. But instead of saying that, use action verb to talk about that. And you can see some examples here. Again, if you need help brainstorming how to write this, make an appointment with us. And we will share a little bit about how to do that in a little bit. So let's give you an example of how to write it. You can see here, we recommend a lot of times using the TART method: tasks, action, and results. And you see the red highlight, taught summer swimming classes, that was the task, for up to 15 children ages 5 to 10 by executing new swimming techniques, which is the action, to focus on core techniques and safety. That's your results. I know not everything you will be able to use the TART method, but always think about giving people context, right? So assisted in maintaining pool facility and recreational areas surrounding pools. That's very clear. It really is important that you give people a snapshot of what you've done. Let's talk about the difference between experience and activities. It's easy to separate them. Let's focus on activity first. So activity a lot of times will be something that, like you see on the slides, less of a time commitment, or activities that you were involved but not actively. So for example, let's say you are part of a student organization, but all you do is just to attend their events, whether it's social events or professional development events. You have not actively engaged in terms of helping to plan the events, maybe helping to promote your organizations. As you could see for the experience section, there are bullet points listed here that actively describe what were your role in this organization. It doesn't necessarily have to be a leadership. Let's say if you're an active member and you've been helping a lot on their annual banquets or engaging in promoting your organizations. If you can put more than 2 bullet points, I would say that could be safe to say is an experience. Again, come talk to us if you have any questions. Okay, so how do you tailor it? Focus on the tailoring because this is the most important part. You could have a master resume that have everything you've done, but when it comes to submitting your resume to a particular position, you need to really think about what are they asking for. Because ultimately, when you write your resume, it's not about what you want to show. It's what do you think they want to see from your experience. So it is your job to extract the type of experiences and skills that match what they're looking for. Here is a sample job description, and we have highlighted important keywords in red. One quick tip: make sure that you save all the job descriptions that you have applied or plan to apply. Sometimes it's really hard to find them because it's very important to prepare your material using the job description. This slide we use to demonstrate how you incorporate the job description in your resume. Remember, I mentioned about tailoring. Your objective need to have the job title and who you're applying to. And then your education, you need to highlight your degree. That's what I mentioned earlier. Don't need to highlight your university, but in terms of your degree and your concentration. If you want to include relevant coursework, make sure these are the courses that will demonstrate you have knowledge and experience based on the job description. And then you see how a bullet point is written to incorporate a few key points or keywords they're looking for. And skills, this is very important. You need to include the skills they're asking for. Even if it's something you think is as simple as Excel and Word, if it's on the job description, you really need to have it there because you could get screened out by that. Especially nowadays, a lot of companies use something called the applicant tracking system, where it's an algorithm, sometimes not very sensitive. They basically pick out keywords on your resume and compare how similar it is to the job description. Okay, so you have to have these words there. And that's another tip. Please don't mass apply. And that's a lot of times why students ask us, why am I not hearing back from employers? I apply for over 100 jobs. Well, it's because you are submitting a resume that's not fitting the job description. Okay, and if you don't have a similarity score that they are asking for on their algorithm, you probably will not get looked at. And it takes a long time to apply for jobs. A lot of times, some of you know, you have to go into the system, fill out all this information, can take over an hour. Sometimes they ask for cover letter. That's why it is so important to go over your job description and the resume and see whether they are fits, whether you have met the minimum qualifications. It's because a lot of time they use minimum qualifications to screen people out. So if your resume does not include those information, the chances of you being looked at will be pretty slim. Once you're done with your resume, we provided a checklist for you to just make sure everything is covered. 1 page maximum is very important. A lot of companies will not look over 1 page resume. On the rare instance when our graduate students, especially our PhDs or somebody who has worked for many years, you could go into 2nd page, but that's on rare occasion. And I always tell students, consider who your audience is, whether they can get the information out very quickly, and whether you have tailored your resume. For those who are in tech industry, make sure that you include some of the jargons or some of the key industry terms on your resume. Anything paid or unpaid, please include. As I mentioned in the very beginning of this presentation, please remove any high school experience if you're 3rd year and above. Employers really want to see what you've done in college. It's very important for them to see that you don't just study and get 4.0 GPA. They want to see what are some of your interests, what are you getting involved in, because they want to know whether you can handle multiple things at once. If you don't have any practical experience, not even volunteer or joining student organizations and actively involved, it's really hard for them to assess what else can you do. Remember the NACE career readiness competencies? A lot of those skills will be acquired through involvement. Avoid using personal pronoun. And make sure that When you write your action verbs, if it's past, use past tense. If you're still doing it, use present tense. Make sure there are no errors, not even editing errors, for example, with spacing. So what not to include? Don't include your picture. Make sure that you don't include your age, your marital status, and any demographic information. Please always save it as a PDF. The reason is that a lot of times for Word or Google Doc, it may look good on your computer, but someone else look at it, your formatting may be very off. And if I don't know you at all, I would just assume that was a careless mistake that formatting is off. Okay, and don't put your reference on the resume because you only have one page. You want to make sure that you pack that page with all the relevant experiences and skills. Create a separate document for references. And what else do you need? So we talked about references page, and then we will show you the format later. But think about how you can use the resume that you have created and put it on your LinkedIn. Students a lot of times ask, who do I include? What do I do? So the most important thing really is you need to make sure you contact your references before putting them on your list and submit to employers. You want to be professional that way because I can tell you a few times I have former supervisee just put me on reference. I got a call out of nowhere I wasn't really expecting. It really did not put this person in a positive light when I didn't know what to say, what to talk about. So you want to make sure you have asked that person. And also you need to ask whether that person or you think that person will give you a positive reference. A lukewarm endorsement is worse than not having that person at all. Just imagine this if somebody asked me, will you give this person a positive endorsement? I would say, well, yeah, they can do the job. That does not inspire a lot of confidence, right? So make sure that your reference is somebody who really knows you and knows you for a while, not just a few days and a few weeks, and is a credible source. I will stay away from anything that's personal. A coworker, somebody who will work with you in a student organization, a supervisor, a professor or TA, is somebody who can really speak to your work habit, will be a great person for it. For those of you who want to apply for graduate school, they will always ask for professors. So it has to be a faculty member, not a TA. Most of the graduate schools ask for at least 1 to 2 academic references. That means a faculty member. So it will be a professor role or a lecturer, but it has to be somebody who is an instructor, not the TA. So not your graduate student advisor. So just a professor. Okay, that's very, very important. And make sure the information is correct. You get their name, their job titles, phone numbers, and emails. There are different ways now people solicit references. They may call this person. More and more I'm seeing is the reference will get a link to fill out the reference instead of writing a letter. If you have any questions about references, feel free to come see us. Okay, no questions are too small. There are different ways the employers will ask you to submit references. Sometimes it's through a portal or when you submit your applications. There are times they will ask you to submit a separate document. I will have the same heading, meaning your contact information, as your resume. Okay. And then the references section, you should include what's listed on the screen. You want to make sure, again, the information is current. It doesn't matter if your supervisors or coworkers have changed job, because your professional relationship could state that that person was your former supervisor at what location. Be sure to ask for the email and phone number. that they use most often. So why talking about LinkedIn? A lot of employers now use LinkedIn to look at their potential candidates. And also, 75 to 80% of jobs are found through these networking platforms. So we really recommend you create a very strong profile. And through that, you can put a lot of different information on your LinkedIn. Unlike resume that's limited to a page, limited to current and relevant experience, you can put a lot of different content on there. You can either hyperlink, add in different things. You can upload your resume, but one very important thing when you do that is remove your phone number and your address if you don't want people to call you or show up at your house, because LinkedIn is very public. So really, really be careful. We have a Mastering LinkedIn workshop that could give you tips on what to do, how to make it so that the employers can get most out of it. As you can see on the bullet point, they use LinkedIn very often to help reduce the cost. And a lot of times, when we have candidates, we immediately go on their LinkedIn to see what their profile said. So what's next? We really recommend you have your resume critiqued by someone other than your friend, to have somebody like a professional who's doing the job in the field, or one of our career specialists. We do have drop-in virtually. Now that everything is remote, you can also go into Handshake to make a 30-minute appointment with one of the specialists. And then upload your resume onto Handshake to make sure your profile is complete as well. Really, it's just once your resume is done, you can copy paste the content on both your LinkedIn and your Handshake profile so that employers can really see. There are some important resources. As I mentioned earlier, and you saw on our website, you can go download the career guide and resume samples. If you have any questions, please feel free to send us an email at careercounseling, or one word, careercounseling@ucr.edu. We will be more than happy to answer that for you. Unfortunately, the campus is closed right now. When we do open, you can find us across from the University Lecture Hall and the Sky Hall. And our hours are listed here. And the email that I mentioned earlier, careercounseling@ucr.edu, is the best way to contact us. Please do not give us a call because our phone line is not monitored due to campus closure. So send us an email if you have any questions. Our emails are monitored from 8 to 5, Monday through Fridays. And if you send us an email on the weekend, we will write back to you on Monday. Thank you so much for your time. If you have any questions, let us know. We look forward to seeing you on Zoom.